fact, when you get into the budget, and I thought it would be easier than it was. Maybe I was a little naive. There is a lobby behind every single dollar in the federal budget. If you don't believe that, come sit in on a budget meeting. It is so difficult to surgically get rid of the wasteful stuff. You need a program just like this, where the president he's going to have to get the buy-in from the Congress on this, to comb through the budget and to finally do something about those programs that aren't addressing our key priorities: middle-class families, job growth, wages and incomes for the broad working middle class. That's what we've got to be about. And Rachel, if you find us cutting programs that boost those kinds of opportunities, bring me in here and we'll talk about it.
Well, the pledge to defend defense, veterans, homeland security, and state and entitlements, target everything else for freeze, is going to make those fights a lot harder, not easier, in terms of making them on their substance, because you just made the competition that much tougher. I would say, Mr. Bernstein, I mean, you are thought of as one of the progressives, one of the people that progressives take heart is in the administration. A lot of people are very happy on the left when Vice President Biden asked you to be his chief economist and economic policy advisor. The White House was on the verge of really winning a lot of liberals over with taking on this fight with the banks and taking on Wall Street reform and taking on some of these other economic issues, really picking a fight with Republicans on this. And then to have followed that up the next day, the next business day, by following Evan Bayh's idea to adopt John McCain's main economic campaign promise from 2008, which he lost, seems to me politically doesn't make any sense.
Well, folks will correct me if I'm wrong, but my recollection is that McCain's was an across-the-board freeze. Remember, ours is not an across-the-board freeze. Ours is a freeze that enables us, with the Congress, to go through this president, to go through the budget, and believe me, his economic team's going to be sitting right there with him, and try to accomplish the goals that I mentioned. And by the way, you talked about progressives and our role, within the administration. I just want to bring you back to this event today with the Vice President, the President, the Middle Class Task Force. For the last year, our task force has had 11 meetings across this country where the Vice President has heard from families about the budget difficulties that they face, paying for college, paying for child care, paying for elder care, saving for retirement. And today, and let's not forget this, Rachel, because I especially would like someone like you to help appreciate and amplify this point. Let's not forget that today, this president stepped in and did something that presidents haven't done for decades, that this middle-class squeeze has been forming, and he did something about it. He helped to ease that squeeze with an extension of that child care tax credit that went from capping out at $40,000 to up to $80,000, so that the max credit would now go to families much higher up in the income scale. For elder care, help to offset some of those costs. For kids paying burdensome debts on their student loans. That's the kind of targeted squeeze, anti-squeeze programs that you'll hear about in this budget, and are completely consistent with the message of jobs and middle-class families.
Do you know that, does the administration know, I guess, is there an awareness that no matter how conservative you tack on some of the larger economic issues, you're doing these, as you say, targeted squeeze-proof, trying to squeeze-proof the middle class a little bit in terms of the economic downturn with those targeted things, but meanwhile taking what I hope you will concede is a big right turn with this pledge for an across-the-board, or almost across-the-board, spending freeze. You guys know that you're not going to get any Republican support, right?
Rachel,
I mean, is this an effort to try to win Republican votes for the president's economic agenda? Because they're not coming.
Look, cutting wasteful spending is not a big right turn. I mean, it's neither right nor left.
Cutting wasteful spending is something the president had pledged to do before this today. This is new. This is a spending freeze in the midst of an economic downturn. And maybe we'll be out of the economic downturn by then, but pledging it now either sets you up to break that if we're still in the economic downturn, or sets you up to really put the country further into the drink than it already is in order to look conservative.
It is important to remember that the freeze doesn't take hold until 2011, but that said, the fact that this is not an across-the-board freeze means that, forget left and right, there are lobbyists supporting special interests throughout this budget that we can finally get in there and do something about. Now, I just don't see why that's serving the American people poorly if, and only if, at the same time we're doing everything we can to deliver on jobs for the middle class. And if we can do both of those, I would think that that would be exactly where we want to be.
Jared Bernstein is the chief economist and economic policy advisor for Vice President Joe Biden. You're a good sport to go toe-to-toe with me on this. You haven't convinced me at all, and I think you've got a huge policy and political problem on your hands because of this. But if all goes well for you, I think you'll be here more trying to defend it. And I appreciate your time tonight, sir. Thank you.
You're welcome, Rachel.